We have come to live in a world where outward show is more prominent and internal strength is almost outdated. People are driven by emotions rather than principles. Proverbs 25 verse 28 though warns us that like a city whose walls are broken through is a person who lacks self-control. So strength is really the internal core. The structure of earth reminds us of the need for inner strength. The earth has 3 layers, though we're most familiar with the crust because that is what is accessible. The mantle and the core are the other 2 layers. The upper mantle consists of rocks that are near melting point. And then after that, there's a transition zone and the lower mantle that's made up of iron, magnesium, and silicate minerals. The inner core is the most metallic place on the earth, consisting of mostly iron. Interestingly, the crust, the big obvious region, makes up only 1% of Earth's volume, while the mantle accounts for 84% and the inner core for 15%. So clearly, Earth is so much more than the crust, which is what meets the eye. The outward layer is a tiny portion of Earth's substance, just as the outward man is a tiny portion of the human persona. At the inauguration ceremony of Israel's first king Saul, Samuel told the people and the new king, "Only fear the Lord and serve him in truth with all your heart, for consider what great things he has done for you." 1 Samuel 12 verse 24. The instruction on truth with all your heart seemed to have been lost on Saul. Saul was driven by emotions instead of principles. 1 Samuel chapter 13 records a standoff between Israel and the Philistines. Now the Philistine army was a formidable opponent. The scriptures describe the army as being 30,000 chariots and 6,000 horsemen, and people as the sand which is on the seashore in multitude. Now compare this with Israel's 2,000 men. Israel was outnumbered to say the very least. Saul faced a dilemma as his soldiers became scared. Verses 6 and 7 say, "When the men of Israel saw that they were in danger, for the people were distressed, then the people hid in caves, in thickets, in rocks, in holes, and in pits. And some of the Hebrews crossed over the Jordan to the land of Gad and Gilead." Saul's army was either hiding or deserting their post, and he became desperate. He wanted spiritual guidance. Samuel the priest told him that he would meet him there in 7 days. But 7 days was way too long for the impetuous Saul, who had no self-control. He did hold out, though, until the beginning of day 7. But before the day ended, Saul lost it. He defied the rules of God as recorded in Leviticus 7 that only the priest should offer the sacrifices, and he made the offering himself. And guess what? Almost immediately after Saul did this, Samuel appeared. Let's pay careful attention to 1 Samuel 13 verses 11 and 12. "And Samuel said to Saul, 'What have you done?' Saul said, 'When I saw that the people were scattered from me, and that you did not come within the days appointed, and that the Philistines gathered together at Michmash, then I said, the Philistines will now come down on me at Gilgal, and I have not made supplication to the Lord. Therefore I felt compelled and offered a burnt offering.'" So Saul looked at the situation that he faced. He looked at the size of the Philistines' army and the size of what he had left, if you could call that an army. And Saul decided that it was better to have soldiers with him than God. By this time, 1,400 of the 2,000 men were gone, according to verse 15. But God was still with him. And then he chose what met the eyes over the one who sees everything. Second, Saul says he felt compelled to take this course of action. He was acting on emotions rather than principle. And this is a clear sign of internal weakness, a lack of spiritual foundation, and certainly an indication of no self-control. He had all the excuses for why he did what he did. At no time did it occur to him that he had violated the principles of God. Verse 14 is part of Samuel's response to Saul, and it reads, "But now, your kingdom will not endure. The Lord has sought out a man after his own heart, and appointed him ruler of his people, because you have not kept the Lord's command." Did you catch that? The lack of self-control disqualified Saul as a man after God's own heart. God expects his people to have self-control. God expects his people to stand on principles no matter what we see or feel. Is there something or someone that seems to compel you to take actions based on emotions rather than principles? If so, it is time to have victory over them. God has not permitted anything or anyone to have that kind of dominion over you. So the authority that is being exercised in these moments are not of God. Your core, your inner strength can only be there if it is based on the principles of God. As prominent as emotions are, they are a tiny proportion of who you are meant to be in God's sight. The type of challenges that face Saul face us every day, where things seem to be spiraling out of control, and they seem to be getting worse unless we take things in our own hands and act. We may feel frightened and cornered and decide that we are compelled. If only Saul accepted that he alone standing with God was a superior army to the Philistines' chariots and foot soldiers. But he looked at the opposing army, then on his men who were deserting him, and not once did he declare that it was God who would fight for him. His people sensed his fear, and they acted according to what the king was feeling. God's children must learn to stand in the face of adversity with faith, courage, and unwavering trust. I remind us all that we're soldiers, enlisted in the winning army. I challenge you today to replace the word Israel in the following text. Put your name and say this verse with confidence. Deuteronomy 20 verses 3 and 4. "And he shall say to them, Hear, O Israel, today you are on the verge of battle with your enemies. Do not let your heart faint. Do not be afraid, and do not tremble or be terrified because of them. For the Lord your God is he who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies, to save you." God, we bless your name for the reminder that we're called to rule over our spirit. We are expected to stand on principles and not on emotions, and to seek you and your favor more than the fleeting security of man. May you find us people after your own heart, God, as we seek to let you fight our battles. We give you glory and praise as we say, Amen and Amen.